Hi, so my name is Andy Porter, and obviously I've been here today working with Terry on behalf of the sort of Hearing Voices Help network and website that we've set up. So if I just give you a quick introduction to who I am really and what I do and my background. So now it's probably over 10 years ago, I was living in a normal house, non-spiritual, non-religious, didn't believe in anything ET-wise or negative or anything like that. So I consider myself to be quite normal, really, to a certain degree. And I was going through a bit of a difficult divorce, and I ended up meeting my new wife, now Jane. At the same time that happened, I moved house and started to experience a lot of negative problems. So lights would be on that I turned off, and I started to see shadows underneath doors, and one thing sort of led to another, to the point that every night really, when I was in bed, I couldn't sleep, and I was starting to hear odd voices, odd sounds, sort of banging, crashing on the hallway, and then the lights would go on and come off again. And I'd walk outside and everything would be okay, and I'd come back to bed, and this kind of got worse and worse, to the point that I started to think I'd kind of gone mad, as you do, really. So I started to look for help, and there was no one to help. So I got to the point that things were getting into bed with me at night, and the covers were lifting, and I could feel things rubbing up and down my legs and touching me, and I would jump out of bed sort of shouting and screaming and using expletives and that kind of thing. And I actually thought I'd lost the plot. One particular night, it was so bad that I woke up and it was just gone 3 in the morning, and I had a bed that was on a laminate floor, and the bed had casters, and I looked up and realised I was looking at the back of the wall, not the ceiling. I thought, that's like really odd. And then I realised the bed was like 2 foot off the floor, sort of thing you see in films and don't ever believe. And I screamed, put me down, and a lot more expletives again. And the bed crashed to the floor, and then I did what all blokes do, really hid under the covers for the rest of the night, shivering and shaking, absolutely petrified. I thought, you know, whatever this is, it's going to kill me, basically. And I woke up in the morning after having more or less no sleep all night, and I thought it must have really just been a bad dream. And I looked at the bed as I got out, and the bed was off the casters, so the bed had moved to the right-hand side, and the casters were left in position, and I realised that I needed help. And at the time, my wife, my wife to be named Jane, she wasn't at the time, but she worked in a hairdressing salon in Launceston in Cornwall, UK, and one of the clients was a psychic. So Jane said, look, I'll speak to this psychic and see what she says. So obviously Jane spoke to Christina, this psychic. She connected to me in the house and said, yeah, you've got loads of things there. Screaming banshee, and it's basically possessed. And I was like, wow. And she said, but I can clear it all. And she did. And for about a week, I used to come home from work, nothing. No goosebumps, no lights on and off. I thought, wow, it's like amazing. And then, of course, it started again. And I realised that effectively something was kind of trying to get my attention from a spiritual perspective, and I needed to understand what was going on. And from that day onwards, I kind of invested a huge amount of time into buying books and spending some in Glastonbury in the UK, which is kind of like the spiritual club. People really. And there are some great books, and just learning about psychic protection and about spiritual entities and the paranormal. And one thing led to another, and I did a crystal healing course and then a Reiki course. And at the end of the Reiki course, the lady running it, Anne Oliver, said to me, do you know what, I've got this Chinese guy that's come in, who's a new guide of yours, and he's saying that his name's Chen, and he's going to work with you, and you're going to be a psychic surgeon. But I didn't really think anything of it at the time, particularly. And then, again, years went by, and I sort of joined lots of psychic groups, meditation groups, and Chen started to come through and actually talk to me, and I could then communicate with him. And I used to go to work every day in the car, and had like a good sort of hour-and-a-half commute each way. And I used to spend my time talking to Chen and trying to get that connection to be really strong. So I'd turn the radio up every day a little bit louder and see if I could lose the connection or maintain it. So that was how I sort of learnt to connect to spirit and talk to Chen. And then we set up a website, and I started to offer myself as a psychic surgeon. I had physical problems, and Chen would take over my body and work through me. And that worked that way for a good 4 or 5 years. And now recently we've moved into people that have got mental illness type problems, schizophrenics, people hearing voices. And I started to realise that this was an area that I'd seemed to excel with by default, really, not that I kind of chose to do that. And I could connect to the entities or the discarnate spirit that are with people and talk to them and ask them to leave. And if they wouldn't leave, my guide Chen and his team would remove them. And then the people would report back that the voices have gone and they'd feel good. And I thought, okay, so, you know, this has kind of been presented to me, even though I haven't chosen to go this way. So 2 or 3 years ago, Terry made contact with me through a website, and we've sort of been friends since now of actually setting up our own website called hearingvoiceshelp.com. And we're starting to work with people that have got mental health, schizophrenic problems. Not to say that we can help all of them, but the ones that we can help, we do. And obviously today, working with Mike is sort of proof in the pudding that in an hour, for a guy that's had 20 years of voices, been through the system, been sectioned, tried to take his own life, you know, we can make a difference and stop those voices. So it's worked really well. So I'm really pleased. So I think now we're like 8 to 9 or something. So we're trying to hold back a little bit because we can't really cope with a sort of deluge, and this is a difficult thing, isn't it? Is that there's only 2 of us, and I've got a normal job, so I'm working like 5 days a week type thing. Terry's obviously retired, so he's got a bit more time, but trying to fit a lot of people in is going to become quite tricky. And that was why we were hoping that we could use this to teach the techniques to other people, and that other people can set themselves up doing the same things, and then just use us for reference and say, right, this didn't work, what have we done wrong, or what could we do? And I can connect and have a look and think, right, yep, you missed this, or, you know. So the intention is not that we're going to be the kind of like central focus to do this, it's just that we can hopefully provide the techniques that then get pushed out to other mediums and psychics, and people like Terry that can then take it and offer it as a therapy. So Equilibrium can have it on their board, you know, for like, whatever, as one of the things they offer. If you're hearing voices come here, someone will sit down with you and go through, looking to see what's attached, talk to it, get rid of it. Yeah, so I used to have the problem, because obviously when I was learning to do it, then I was getting this flood of, so we'd go and sit in like a pizza. Jane and I'd be out for pizza one night. In fact, we were next to one night that I remember. And I remember seeing people coming through the door, a lot of children, and walking right up to us. And I'm sort of talking to her, and I'm looking at these people, and we're eating this pizza, and it started to get really cold, because of course spirit brings cold in, or their energy makes things cold. You feel the cold. So Jane looked up and said, "But God, it's really got cold in here." And I said, "Yeah, I know, there's like 50 people stood next to us." She's like, "Wow, can't see anything, you're crazy," type conversation. So I just had a chat to some of these children and said, "Look, you know, they were telling me they'd followed me all around Exeter, followed my energy around, and we all just stood in Pizza Express." So I just said to Chen, "Can we help them?" And just opened the door, and they all literally went through, door closed, and the room warmed up instantly. And it was like, wow, that's really interesting. So as part of kind of my journey, I've needed to learn these little techniques of how to deal with this kind of like intrusion, because it becomes an intrusion, because when you can speak and see them, they don't go. And that's the same problem that Mike's obviously had. He's got things talking to him all the time, and they won't go unless you kind of need to make them and know how to do that. And you know, it's part of the learning curve to a certain degree. So really. Yeah. So kind of I've got used to it. But so the way that I work for myself now is that when I'm in my normal conscious self, which is like 90% of the time, I'm just me as you would be you, just doing my normal things, driving the car, you know, listening to music. But then when I want to talk to Chen, I just do a quick bit of grounding, a quick visualization of protecting myself, then request to connect to him, and then I get a voice in my head and we just have a chat like we're sort of sitting. So normally if I'm in the car driving somewhere, we have quite a long chat about the world and things, and you know, not particularly spiritual things, just normal stuff, as though you're sat with your friend in the car having a chat. It's just that my friend no one else can see. And I think that's the interesting point as well, is that people that are mediumistic and psychic are only one step away from being like Mike, except Mike is talking to things that he can't control and therefore cause him a negative problem, and hence, you know, you need to see a doctor and you get sectioned and that kind of thing. Whereas we all hear voices the same, just that our voices are positive and they don't, you know, there's a certain boundary they don't encroach on, and we can manage that conversation the same as you would do in a normal sort of physical reality. And that's the key really. If people were taught how to protect themselves and learn more about spirituality from school, everyone could do this, because it's not rocket science at all. It's just that people aren't taught how to do it, and then when you hear a voice that you don't know how to control or manage, then you end up with these problems. So basically, Terry and I have set a new website up called Hearing Voices Help, and the idea is that, well, my guide Chen asked me to set it up and gave me the name. I checked on the domain, it was free, so we bought the website, and because I work in IT, I've actually designed, if you like, and Terry and I have set it up, and we've got it set up in the way it is. And the idea is it's going to be there to help people that are hearing voices. So the intention is when someone types in Hearing Voices help, as in help me, we're hoping that our website will come to the top of that list, and it will just give people an alternative view really on the help that's available and the things they can do. Because we've both looked, and there's hundreds of websites on Hearing Voices from Mind and from the social services aspect, and obviously every country has a mental health kind of area, so they've all got their websites and they've all got their help. But unfortunately, all it actually does is take them into the kind of the normal medical establishment route of tablets and medication, and there isn't really anyone talking about the fact that if you can remove the spiritual entities connected to someone, then the voices go. So not that this works all of the time, but for certain numbers of people, and obviously for Mike that we've sort of displayed today, if you can get rid of the attachments, then the voices stop. So we're hoping that the website is going to become the kind of go-to place for people that are looking for an alternative angle really. And like Mike, have been through the system, he's tried all the medication, he's had the therapy, it hasn't worked, and we're hoping that we can get to a point that we are offering a different view on it, with a view to actually helping people to get better. Because that's the whole point, is that Terry and I have set this up without funding from our own pockets, and we give our own time, and we're not paid for it at all. So it's not coming from a make some money perspective, it's coming from a we can help people, and we've both had families and people in our lives that have suffered with these traumatic effects, and therefore we're keen to make a difference. And of course we know it works. I think really that with the website behind us now, and our YouTube channel and our own websites, we know that the things that we do does actually work. It's just getting other people in society to understand and to look for that alternative help really. I've got this little dilemma really, because I work in IT. Every time someone finds out what I do, I lose my job immediately, because people are scared that you know when they're going to die and all this stuff, which it's like spiritual people don't know that. Mediums and psychics don't know it. I don't sit in front of someone and see like your life path and think, yeah. But of course, the population seem to think that if you're mediumistic or psychic, you know all this stuff. But as I was trying to explain earlier, I choose when I talk to Chen, and he chooses what he tells me. If I don't ask him for information, he won't tell me. And even if I asked him for information about somebody, if they haven't given their permission, he still wouldn't tell me. So, it's no different from talking to your friends, really. It's the same kind of setup and configuration. But I kind of got to the point, I thought, okay, everything's happening on Facebook, and I've chosen purposely not to put myself on Facebook because it doesn't work well from a kind of normal job perspective.
That's how it operates, isn't it?
Yeah, but it does, and I've worked for some really some good managers in big companies, that are very well respected. And as soon as they find out what I do, you get called in, project's been cancelled, or the resources funding's disappeared, and you're packing your bags the same day normally. So I've got to the point of trying to keep the spiritual world away from my normal physical IT world, on the basis that they don't actually interact very well. My view is that this is going to get bigger, and we are going to take this somewhere quite positive, and at some point it will probably become my normal job really, or normal career. So I set this Facebook website up, and I've started to post a few things, and the idea was just try and grow a few friends, and then when we do these sort of events, I can then push it out and say, look, this is happening, anyone want to come? So at the moment Terry's got 2 or 3 I think different Facebook pages. He's got his book, his own personal one, and then he's got the Dr. Terence Palmer one. So we didn't want to kind of spread it too wide, but the idea was that the Hearing Voices Help would become its own autonomous thing, really. And so a Facebook entity called that people can contact us on it, and then we've got someone that can reply. Because of course at the moment as well, we try not to make it too popular on the basis that there's only 2 of us running everything from behind the scenes. And obviously if Terry starts to get lots of interest and people mail in, these days with social media, everyone expects to reply on my own website. As soon as I get busy, I end up with like 30, 40 emails, and I've got to reply to each one individually, and then you get a whole load more questions come back, and you can burn through time really quickly. So that was why, because I used to actually talk to people, as in the old way of doing things. But I just found that everyone would want an hour's conversation, and no more or less they'd want to talk about me and how I got into doing this stuff, not about their own problems. So if you've got like 40 people a day mailing you, you can't have 40 hours of conversation. So I got to the point I kind of shut off all phone conversation, just moved purely to email on the basis that I can write emails quite quickly and you can get the communication very quickly. And ultimately for me, the way that I work, I don't actually need to speak to anyone anyway, because I just connect to their energy and do the work that I do. So I don't actually need to get into a big long conversation. Just intent, really. So my intention when we work with a client, Terry doesn't give me their name, just a client called X, and Mr. or Mrs. normally. So I just bring up a picture of a female or male in my mind, and then with my intent, I just visualise connecting to that person.
So you have nothing else?
So I have no hair. Like a lot of mediums need clothing or hair or photographs. I find I don't need anything like that at all. Just purely the intent to connect to the right person. I can hit their etheric field, and then I can feel what they're feeling as well. So Terry quite often will say to me, how is this person feeling? Like I say, I've got the jitters, I feel like I've got a coffee rush, or I feel really depressed or angry or sad, or I feel like I want to cry, so and it just kind of happens really. And of course my guides are sat in the background, so I'm talking to them, checking that, I've got the right person, we've got, the problem that they've been presented with. And then when we finish, Chen will normally give me the okay that they're happy from a spiritual perspective that we've done what we need to do for that session. So for me really, I kind of have the easiest job, so I don't really have to do very much other than listen to Chen and repeat what he says and just go through some visualization and the psychic aspect that sort of has taken me like 10 years to learn, but now it's just like sort of tying your shoes really. It's kind of just happens. Yes, when we first sat down, I just basically had a quick look around his etheric to see what was there. So I could see at least 3 negative entities that were connected into him. We call it corded in. So I see like a cord, almost like a hose pipe that connects from them into his etheric field. And then I could see a whole host of what we call earthbound discarnate spirit in the background. So they're not really, they don't present themselves to me as being connected to him, but they're with him. So I know that we need to talk to them. And then from there on in, for me, it's just a case of normally removing the negative entities first and then speaking to the discarnate spirits. Normally one comes forward as a kind of, almost like a host presenter really, and they'll talk to me, and the rest will just follow. It's just a case of inviting them to move to the light and move on. And then what Mike would feel immediately is this huge sense of like uplifting relief. Almost like, if you've been walking around with like a breeze block on your back, that's weighted you down, and you take it off, you'd go, oh, great. And I actually watched him, and he actually lifted his neck at the time, and he coughed, and I thought, he's noticed the actual physical feeling of that. So and that's the thing really, is that things that happen to you in the etheric actually change your physical feeling. So you can, if people visualise, well, there's certain occult techniques that you can use, you can do things to people without them knowing that actually cause them physical pain. So it's a powerful area really. Yeah. And you'll find now that going home, his energy will suddenly come back, well, by now already, and he'll actually be feeling like he's living again properly, and he's got energy to do things, and that's what these things do. Negative entities and discarnate spirit, effectively, they kind of connect to you, and then they siphon your energy. And this, I think, is probably where the idea of sort of psychic vampirism came from, like years ago, whereby if you've got something connected to you, not taking your blood would give you the same effect, because you'd feel lethargic and tired. And this is the same kind of concept, that you've got an entity vampire in your energetic field and taking your energy from you. And then, of course, you're a physical person, physical being, so you'll feel that change. I've had it a lot of times, so I know exactly what it feels like, and this is, I think, is the thing really. So I'm kind of lucky in a way, because I went through quite a difficult, traumatic experience. That's part of my spiritual path. I can understand exactly what people tell me and how they feel, because I've been there myself. At the time, it was the most horrendous thing ever in my life. But I look back now and think, well, that was the best teaching I could have had, really, because, you know, I've been there and been through it all. So when people talk about, you know, these things and how they attack them and what they do mentally and the thoughts they give them and that kind of thing, I know exactly where they're coming from because I've experienced it myself. So it kind of is like a blessing in disguise.